Okay, maintain prompt comms with your forces, your supervisor and adjoining forces. Again, that's keeping in touch with the units around you, because what happened at South Canyon as well, there was a red flag warning, which is something you need to be aware of for a cold front passing through. Didn't get communicated out to the lowest levels on the line, okay? Because they didn't have good comms. There were so many agencies. Ooh, does this sound familiar? So many agencies, so many different departments working that fire. I think they had 3 dispatchers, and we're watching a case study on this later on the Twist fire. They're not talking. So this critical information at like 2 o'clock, 1400 hours, isn't getting through to the troops on the ground. And they're missing the fact this cold front is coming through. Cold front, what can that do? 180 fire front shift, right? So yeah, that's critical.
Hey Brent, so the red flag day is a United States kind of warning component for the wildland interface. Maybe a fire behavior advisory is something that we're more familiar with, that we're going to find in the incident action plan that would identify those types of situations, like a cold front coming in, Absolutely. or weather change, right? So although this is very much a United States focused document, a red flag day would very much in turn reflect to a fire behavior advisory for the province of British Columbia.
Just further to that too, Chief, that's a good point. For those of us in the lower kind of part of the province, like kind of the Okanagan area, if you look on the National Weather Service, which is the American weather, they actually have like a whole dedicated element to fire weather. So like if you see an American red flag warning for like Okanagan, which is spelled with an O, which is like an hour south of here, hour and a half south of here, you can pretty much bet there's a red flag fire behavior advisory in effect for us. So again, this whole safety thing too, I encourage you to look at these other sources, read the books, all of that. Okay, give clear instructions and be sure that they're understood. Is that true in structure firefighting too before you make entry? Absolutely, okay? Everybody needs to know what's going on. Maintain control of your forces at all times. There's a reason why we had that first selection of slides, but we don't work here, okay? I've seen it, I think we all have. People get excited, they start going off into the black. As an engine boss, if 3 of your personnel are outstretched on a line putting out a stump out on fire, do you necessarily have control of them? Okay, think about that. And then again, fight fire aggressively, having provided for safety first. So basically what that's saying, until we have laces in place, which is your minimum level of hazard control, you're not going to be doing anything, okay? If that is in place, use your risk management system and fight fires accordingly. Watch out situations. I'm not going to go through all 18, but I do encourage you to take a look. These are situations, again, based on lessons learned, that if you encounter that, you need to look up, look around, look down, figure it out what you're going to do, okay? They're trigger points, and we'll get into trigger points in just a bit. But you have to have an action. If you encounter this, unburned fuel between you and the fire, if you encounter that, first of all, you need to communicate it out. And then you need to think about, what are you going to do? Are you going to mitigate it by moving back into the black? Are you going to withdraw? What are you going to do? Call in more resources? You need to do something, okay? They're a trigger for action, for leadership action. My favorite, of course, is taking a nap in the fire line. Yeah, I won't get into that story. Okay, any questions on the 10 and 18s? Okay, I encourage you to go over these with your crews, review them, look at them through the day. Okay, use these as sort of the kind of the basis when you get your briefing. If all this stuff, like you want to get information that so you can know when these occur. Okay.
I'll just add one thing. As an engine boss, if you're going through your 10s and 18s because you're starting to get your spidey senses up, is that an immediate withdrawal to the safety zone, or do you have one boss that you can ask that question to? If you don't have that information, can you ask up and say, hey, I need clarification on this piece because I'm unclear with it right now? And they say, yeah, actually, this is what we have. Maybe the communication link between you and them has gone down or has not been, hasn't happened in a while. So just make sure that, before you pull everybody out, is that you ask that question, unless conditions deem that you need to pull everybody out right away. And then that, using leader intent and putting firefighter safety first, is the action that you would take. But if you're just unclear and you seek clarification, go up to your strike team task force leader and ask them. For myself, I've been on lots of events where laces wasn't in place and we were actioning the fire, and that for me is something that we need to put a pause on action and make sure we identify those things, communicate them out. But if you're unclear, go to your boss, ask them the question. If they're unclear, then you start having that greater conversation about pulling back until we can get clarity and then re-engage.
Okay, so situational awareness interface, we've talked a lot about SA. Again, I refer you back to your IRPG, the look up, look down, look around indicators in the green sections. And again, the bottom line is, you got to apply your experience, your planning, your training, what you get from your briefing each day, and you got to make the right decisions, okay? Because this is about safety. And just looking at this photo, this is taken from the Fraser Lake Complex fire. Like, what kind of situational awareness aspects does this firefighter need to be concerned about? Like, just what's going on there? That's a snapshot. Fire's burning on this side of the road. This is going on, the fire already pushed through that area. What does that firefighter need to worry about, do you think? Okay, what's with danger trees? Okay.
Whether the wind from the helicopter would push danger trees over towards them.
Yeah.
If they're too close.
Yep, for sure. Anything else? What's this? I see you laughing. Do you want to make a comment?
Sikorsky-Siskiyou 1 is probably the largest displacement of air that we have in our fleet. So you do not want to be anywhere near that machine when it's in proximity to ground effect.
What would be a safe working distance from that aircraft?
Probably in the neighborhood of 800 meters.
Yeah. Does it look like she's 800 meters? No, exactly.
The other thing that I will point out about that photo is if that fire's already gone through there, it was a dirty burn, means that it didn't consume all the fuels.
Exactly.
There's still available fuels that are there. So don't let your guard down. Just because the fire's gone through doesn't mean that it can't go through again if it's a dirty burn like that.
Yeah, exactly. What about the PPE? Do we see any problems? That's actually a t-shirt. Again, this is from a real deployment. I'm not throwing anybody on the bus. I was the task force responsible.
I think there's times we get a little complacent when we've been working here on a 14-day deployment. This might be day 8 or 9.
Yeah.
We don't fight fires every day.
Yep.
And I think as a crew boss, it's really important that we are disciplined at all times, that when our crews are out of the truck, they've got helmets on, they've got their PPE on, they've at least got their gloves in their pocket so they can get them quick. Because in the environment we work in, the spot fires just appear. The ember shower isn't always that apparent, and we'll be doing our work, fire smarting or whatever it is, and all of a sudden we'll notice a whoop of smoke in a shrub bed or in a backyard, and we don't always have time to run back to the truck to get our helmet and whatnot. So as a crew boss, it's imperative that when your people get off the truck, that they're geared up, ready to work. Other than having lunch, they should be in PPE all the time,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you'll get pushback on this from your own crews, absolutely. And what will happen as well is you'll see other crews in your task force roll in that aren't wearing PPE and others that are. So absolutely, manage your own crew. You know how to do that. But if you have a bigger issue, then you got to take it up the chain of command to your task force stand leader. Okay. Okay, so
15 kilometers.
this is Christy Mountain, actually. This is Chief of the
Copy that. Thank you very much. Fire center clear.
Yeah, so one critical component that I've talked about already in this whole situational analysis, like having that available, is knowing the fire behavior and the prediction. How many of you know or use Kestrel devices? Yeah, I know the forestry guys got them. Any structure people? Yeah, so again, this is a great, $200 to $400 item, depending on how many bells and whistles you want on the thing. Just a great thing that you can have for like that tactical weather forecast. And day 2, we'll be using this. We'll show you like how to deploy it, how to use it. It's just a matter of monitoring. Do it whenever, every hour, whatever you need to do to keep constantly abreast of that weather and what that wind is doing. Okay. Another thing to be aware of, and this is like a really like a hardcore forestry kind of concept, is this whole idea of fuel types and alignment. Okay. Does anybody know what alignment is? It's a red flag, or sorry, it's a watch out. It is like super dangerous to you. Any thoughts? Okay. Joel keeps laughing, so
I think in the Okanagan, he's talking about the 30-30 crossover.
yes,
Which,
good example.
yeah, it's when the temperature reaches 30 and then it's going up, and then the RH is robbing all the fuel, so the RH is going down. So temperature high, RH down is the most volatile, like that the fires are going to happen at for us. So it's our big red flag heads up. So that's why with our Kestrel on the fires too, we'll have someone every hour doing your Kestrel reading, so you'll know when it's going to hit, so you can tell everybody. So yeah, it's the most important part for sure.
Yeah, so everybody in the room's heard of 30-30 crossover, right? Yeah, so that's exactly what Joel's alluding to. So 3 components of the fire: weather, topography, fuel type, determines how that fire is going to behave. Again, it's pretty basic stuff. But when these 3 things align, so you get weather, say strong winds, passing cold front, whatever it is, that aligns with topography. Does fire burn more vigorously in a flat terrain or with steeper terrain? Shell? Steeper? Right. So let's say we got some wind here, we've got some topography in the form of steep terrain, and fuel type. What about fuel type? How it's arranged, okay? What type it is? Is it small, flashy fuels? Kim?
So I'm just going to throw some thresholds at you folks just so you have a better understanding for situational awareness. So when you have a fire on the landscape and you're looking at fuels, weather, and topography, if you look at the weather side of things, and let's talk about the wind. So for every 13 kilometers an hour of wind that you experience, it doubles your rate of spread. So you can have a rank 2 fire all of a sudden becomes rank 3, rank 4 with a 13 kilometer an hour wind. When you get to your topography features and the slope that you're dealing with, for every 25% slope, once again, it doubles your rate of spread. So you need to be aware of those factors. If you have a 13 kilometer an hour wind and a 25% slope that you've got your fire working on, you're going to have aggressive fire behavior. Now, when you look at your fuel types, the flashier fuels, the grass fuel types, and those kinds of things, those are the things for situational awareness that you need to really pay attention to, because the fine fuels will flash off very quickly. And if you have your fuels, weather, and topography line up with those 3 components that I just mentioned, all at the same time, you're going to be getting experienced fire rankings that you won't be able to manage with any kind of success, because it is now, it's got a foothold and it's taking off. For those of us in the wildfire game, rank 3 is our threshold for being able to manage an incident with a 3-person initial attack crew and 300 gallons of water. As soon as you get past rank 3, you need to back off, reestablish, and come up with a different tactic or strategies to be able to deal with that incident. So those are the kind of the situational awareness things that you need to know when you get out on an incident, and pay attention to them, because that wind, that is one of the key components that changes the fire behavior and changes it very quickly. And if you happen to be in front of it, it's probably not going to be a very good outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, alignment is something you may hear in your briefing, so it's critically important that you know what alignment means. And like Kim said, it's absolutely critical to your situational awareness. I mean, if these things come into alignment, you can have a fire down here that goes up to that pretty fast. I'm sure you've seen it many times. So again, it's one of those words that you need to be aware of, and it goes back to the basics of fire behavior, okay?
On the Kestrel, just one thing I'll jump in here. On the Kestrel it's a great thing for a lookout to have, so because that can identify your trigger points. 30-30 crossover could be a trigger point. Okay, that's a decision point. We're at 30-30. What are we going to do? What's the fire doing? What's our predicted fire weather behavior? And having one of those things in your hand is going to help you. For me, I'm a bit of a weather nerd between about April and November, where at 5 o'clock you can see me out on my lawn holding this thing at the prevailing wind, trying to guess what the speed is. And I'm always like, oh man, that's got to be 35. Man, that's really ripping. And I'll look and be, oh, 18. So actually going out and understanding those speeds. So the first time you ever get this Kestrel in your hand and you're like, how do you turn this on and what do I do with it? That's not the time to be learning it as a lookout. So if you have one in your organization on training nights or whatever, just take it out and point it at the wind and see what speed it's going. And you're going to get different, there's a ton of different readings, so you want to be on a proper representation of the fuel type. Typically standing out on the tarmac on the road, that's different than what's burning in the forest, so get off the tarmac and that'll give you a better idea, and you'll use that tool a little more efficiently. But Don't use it the first time on deployment as the lookout trying to identify the trigger points. Do it now and try to guess your wind speeds.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we're covering this in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. We could spend half a day working on just how to use a Kestrel properly. But again, for those of you attending day 2, please make sure if you have a Kestrel, bring it, because we'll be, like Chad said, we'll be doing that exactly with our lookouts. That'll be one of their tasks they need to cover.